The New York Times has this: India is saying that it will keep purchasing cheap oil from Russia, despite a threat of penalties from President Trump. The Times says that the move reflects increasing frustration surrounding the US-India relationship, a relationship that was once much praised but has been souring rapidly. Trump recently said he would impose an unspecified penalty on India if they didn't cut their imports of Russian oil. Host of the Strat podcast, Hal Kemper, is still here. We'll get to the Russian piece of this in a moment. Let's focus on the US-India relationship. First, why is a healthy US-India relationship important? Maybe the better question is, why is a turbulent relationship not ideal? Well, it's not ideal because it's kind of a counter, if you will, to China. Also, it's part of what's called the Quad, which is an informal group that's become more and more that's over time, where India is a linchpin, and then you have Japan and Australia with the US and doing joint military exercises. A lot of interaction with that. So we've been trying to basically make India our lead ally, if you will. I don't know if it's going to become more lead than, say, Australia, but a major ally that we can rely upon. And not just South Asia and Asia, but also in the Indian Ocean and everything that connects to. So it's been a relationship we've been working on for a number of years. However, if you go back historically, India has always had kind of a third way of doing things, and during the Cold War, they would say we have our third way. We are neither communists, we're neither fully capitalist. We do what we do, and they used to buy weaponry from the Soviet Union, and they maintain very cordial relationships with the Soviet Union, which we found very unsettling. We had a close relationship with Pakistan during the Cold War. And that has been reassessing itself, shifting around. Pakistanis align itself closer with China. We remind ourselves very closely with Modi's India, and it seemed like everything was moving pretty close up until a few months ago. And then all these trade issues popped up, and now we're seeing this more distant relationship starting to emerge. So one thing, as we take a live look at the White House 512 in the nation's capital, I gotta say this: India is the most populated country on the planet. 1.4 billion people. Is there an argument to be made how that the word of the White House shouldn't decide how they get energy to their people? Is that India's perspective? Well, India's perspective is that they don't want to be bullied by the US, and a lot of this is with Modi. Internal to India right now, they've got trade negotiations with the US. One of the things we're really pushing hard on is we're saying, look, you can't keep protecting all your agricultural goods. Now, 40% of the population works in agriculture, very different from here. And they've always had these massive barriers protecting agricultural production and agricultural products, and blocking agriculture imports into India. The US were a power in the world scene, and we want to be able to export. This is causing huge political turmoil within India. And I think what you're seeing is Modi is kind of lashing back, not directly on the egg issue, but he's saying this on oil. The interesting thing on oil, though, is most of the oil companies there had already stopped buying more Russian oil. They'd kind of put a moratorium on that. There's even one firm which is about half Russian-owned, where they kicked out the Russian CEO and/or the Russian PIX CEO, I should say. And their big cases were tankers coming from Russia with oil, at literally a few days ago. Turn around and went the other direction, because they weren't going to offload their oil. In India, that would indicate one thing. But now we're seeing this political statement which says we're not going to be bullied in terms of buying Russian oil. We get our sources of oil from everywhere else. I think they're a little concerned, though, that if they don't get Russian oil, then they're really dependent on the Middle East, primarily.